agree on the network effects, that everyone goes there because everyone is already there, and I think that's why we should try for that, because if everyone came to Estonia, then the local funds would also find it easier to establish here and get limited partners. But I absolutely agree. And I mean, I think Luxembourg does benefit from that sector, tax-wise, etc. as well. So I think it's definitely a sector that Estonia could pay more attention to. But yeah, I think we want to be better than Luxembourg, not the same.
Yeah, and agreeing with both of you, but I think we should pay attention to this because it will feed into the ecosystem, so it would make Estonian startup ecosystem even better. So Estonian companies would have easier access to capital and investment, and that would in return also bring us more talent.
Yes, and it's very interesting that many of you now said that we don't want to be a copy of Luxembourg. But at least we have established that there seems to be an opportunity to look for better jurisdictions or better fund environments. But about the copy effect, so going back 6 years in time, so in 2017 actually, Estonia kind of introduced the first move to become the next Luxembourg. So at that time, a new law was introduced, the new version of Investment Funds Act. And actually, the first sentence of this law, I quote, the explanatory notes of that law reads as follows. The main goal of the bill is to make the Estonian fund market more attractive for investors and fund service providers. And the law was basically copied from Luxembourg. So 6 years later, I think we can agree that we haven't exactly achieved that goal. So what do you think, for example, Kat, maybe you can elaborate, what has stopped Estonia? What are the weaknesses here?
Yeah, I mean, you listed 3 positions for me, and I only gave you 2 because the third one is not licensed. We started Govion Capital 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago, summer 2020. We got the Financial Finansinspektion, Financial Authority approval in 3 months, as they promised. Super transparent, super communicative, super clear. And at that point, it wasn't quite clear whether you needed the license for the Anti-Money Laundering Bureau or not. But in the meantime, before we wanted to start a new fund, it became apparent that you do. And we applied for that in March. And because we are still not licensed, I cannot really talk about that. So I will talk about other stuff. Super Angel is also established in Estonia, one of the sort of patriots who want to be here and who have managed to get LPs into that fund, but obviously it is not easy to sell it to international LPs at all. But yeah, the experience in Luxembourg, where it took over a year to set up a fund, like I would absolutely recommend to everyone to do it in Estonia.
Wow, so I think that's a very positive note for VCs listening. But what about things that are, well, we have seen like not many VC funds have come to Estonia. So Andreas, maybe from your perspective, what could attract the foreign investors here, or what would we need in Estonia?
I think, like first of all, I think Estonia needs to become like visible on that map, that it's even alternative to come here. And honestly, I mean, I'm based in Switzerland, so also Switzerland has kind of ambitions to become a place for funds and so on. But I think probably the communication and also marketing was not sufficient enough, right? And I know that it's a thin line between going out and tell a big story about what can happen here, and then attract the wrong people, and then you get the kind of the same problems as many countries have with crypto, right? Attracting some strange players. But on the other hand, if nobody knows, then it's so super difficult to actually to explain that to the LPs. And I think also it's probably a little bit with the startups. You need to find the niche, where we can actually create some traction and then have testimonials and then go out with those testimonials. And I think all those funds who have maybe started in Luxembourg first and have the experience of what it means actually to incorporate and onboarding and all these kind of paperwork. I don't know how many pages we sent back and forth between Zurich and Luxembourg. Is kind of something you can actually also tell and use then to convince people to come here, and maybe start with a niche and maybe targeting emerging funds, right, who have a strong need for maybe digital solutions and so on. And then obviously the network effect at one point in time needs to kick in, because if that doesn't happen, then nothing happens.
I think emerging funds is a brilliant idea, because there is also a cost element, right? Luxembourg is not only inconvenient, but it's also very expensive.
Yeah. And maybe to add on that, it's I think a super interesting topic, right? We are investing, we do we do many investments. So with that fund, we started the new fund. We started in April. We already did like 47 investments. As you can imagine, we invest in those cohorts. So there's a lot of activities we need to do in our investment management process. When we talk about fees, like the model in Luxembourg, for instance, like you pay for every onboarding, right? A fixed fee. If you would we would sum that up, I think our management fee would not even last to cover the cost just for the audit of doing all these kind of onboardings, which is completely ridiculous from my point of view, because it's a repetitive task you can actually fully automate. And this is the thing, like where a jurisdiction with a very digital service provider landscape can really make a difference, lowering the fees, right? Make it more efficient, and that becomes attractive. Then you can actually also grow the ecosystem, and then eventually it also becomes attractive here to be part of it.
Okay, so Estonia as a digital country, we have all these solutions. Lina, maybe from the e-residences perspective, you could say what companies, when they want to come to Estonia, what they're looking for here, or what we could use also for the fund management sector.
Yes, well, what I'm picking up, if you're saying that it's we're actually the unit that advertises Estonian digital ecosystem, so we should do a better job. but also what we've seen, so e-residency isn't something in itself, it's just a key, it's access. So we give access to non-residents and hopefully non-residents with an intention to create a company here, so that they can access Estonian digital systems. And again, why we're to this date still unique, and even though other countries are also trying to set up their own e-residency systems, is exactly because of that, because Estonian government services are 99% digital, and you can do everything online. And that's actually what attracts people and companies to come to Estonia and to establish shop here. But what we're also, so this is a very specific government initiative to attract more business into Estonia. And when we work, or our daily work in e-residency, we also see that there are people who are not getting everything or the licenses in Estonia so smoothly and easily or fast. So maybe this is something that we can consider, that this is another program we strategically choose to pursue, and a sector that we strategically choose to pursue to make it easier, to tailor make it.
Because, for example, there is a bit of a mismatch now where the Anti-Money Laundering Bureau, for example, is not fully digital. They actually require someone to be in Estonia.
That's why I said 99%.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely sounds like a great place for your efforts. Yeah. And sort of speaking, you were talking about the sort of picking a niche. And unfortunately, I think what happened a little bit was that Estonia picked a niche, but that was the crypto niche, and then things went a little bit wrong. And now we have this backlog of people to take licenses away from, and therefore like genuine funds like ours, which have been verified in a different country and which do a very different business. I don't know how many limited partners you have, but we have 50 who we've known for 10 years. The risk for us is much lower than for the crypto stuff, but the messaging kind of went in the wrong direction originally.
Yeah, we all know there have been, the things that happen in the market, and I think what we could also do is that we could define the risk-reward benefit, right? What's the ratio, and what's the risk appetite, and that's also that we can do. And I don't think that market participants are aware of it, so it might be defined somewhere, but it's not too well communicated. So that could be another thing that could help.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's still, like, if you as a fund want to be somewhere where regulation and all these kind of things are really low, then you go to BVI or Cayman, right? That's still possible. So I think there's something in between. Exactly. Like, either you go to this, I would say, like more conservative spots where innovation is super slow and you have to deal with all these things, and maybe it makes your life easier to explain that to LPs. Like, we have UBS as one of the LPs, as you can imagine, they're super demanding, right, in terms of risks and so on. But on the other hand, I think there's something in between. You still can be like a reliable jurisdiction for funds, doing all the checks, and I think there's no way around doing AML checks, but maybe you could do that more automated, more digital, and then I think that's spot on. That's where I would go. If such a solution is ready, I would probably even consider to talk to UBS.
No, absolutely. I fully agree that I think none of us are against the rules, and I think the rules are actually good. But they need to be predictable and consistent and enforced consistently. Like, one of the things that I do not like with CSSF in Luxembourg is that they tell you what they don't want you to do, but they really don't tell you what they want you to do, and it's very unclear and inconsistent communication, and this is something that Estonia could do better to sort of... And again, like the Financial Conduct Authority here, I think is very good. They kind of said, we take the responsibility of 3 months, this is what we want from you, and my experience with communication with them was that if we didn't deliver what they asked, they pointed out something that was inconsistent with specific law, and they were super helpful. But yeah, that has not been the experience with the entire process.
Yes, picking up on that maybe is that what I recently heard from a lot of people who want to get the registration or fund management registration in Estonia, then they don't get it because they're not Estonian. And you all mentioned some obstacles that we have due to the, let's say, crypto problems in previous years, that there is kind of not a risk appetite. We have problem with AML verification, bank accounts. So the timeline becomes an issue as well. So what do you think, what could the government or the regulator do? Like, should they then establish a certain risk assessment or an exception for VC fund sector, or where should they start? Maybe
I can take it maybe. So I mentioned risk appetite, just to define this and determine what it is, and then I would also, and I'm really crossing some boundaries here because it's not really my field, but I would also maybe reconsider the blanket approach. Like, maybe we can make exceptions based on, I don't know, geography, sector, size. Like, what if we consider that what if we decide that we want smaller or like more boutique funds here, and then think through the whole customer journey for them. And then there could be another, like also the cooperation between, for example, even SPCA. So what if they give an additional confirmation that, yes, we know them and we know those LPs. So that could also help the regulator.
Yeah, I think that would be super helpful. And again, I think we do need help with someone explaining to the government the difference between a crypto fund where investors come in and out daily and they don't know them versus a illiquid 10-year fund where the investor base does not change for 10 years.
Absolutely, and maybe also looking at Singapore, as we have a presence there, so we also invest, in Singapore out of the Luxembourg structure, but we know a little bit, how the regulator behaves there and the approach they do, and I think it's also very clever. It's very thought through, and it's very also, marketing oriented, because they really want to make sure that, everyone understands what they're doing and it's attractive. I think that could be something which I think can maybe, be a model for Estonia as well. Because that's really lacking here in Europe, because it's much more fragmented. And, like the risk appetite, is something, I fully understand. If you just go like Wild West, then it's super clear that, it will end up in a mess. So you need to find the right balance, and I think digitization and all these capabilities we, in the meantime, have, like seeing that, what startups are doing, just, using that, I think you can create a super regulated environment with all the securities and the reliabilities you need, but still being very attractive and, at a lower cost.
It looks like we do have an opportunity here, at least. Coming back to the comparison with Luxembourg for a minute. So from the venture capital perspective or fund manager perspective, how important, if any, is the fact that Estonia's this legal regime for VCs actually is basically the same. We have the tax transparency, we can establish similar limited partnership funds as is very common in Luxembourg. So Gert and Andres, maybe you can...
Yeah, I remember when that regime was being created, and I tried to help out because I had seen both the Luxembourg system and the UK system. It's kind of like a best of both worlds between the UK and Luxembourg systems. So I'm a big fan of the jurisdiction here. I think that's absolutely necessary but not sufficient, in the sense that if that didn't exist, we wouldn't even be considering starting funds here. And I think there was this unfortunate case in Latvia where they hadn't thought everything fully through, and there was a tax issue for some funds that established there. That is the nightmare scenario. You do not want to have to start rewinding things. So with that, I'm not worried about Estonia, but it's not enough. Because interestingly enough, the fund is the last step of the process. You first need a management company. And if you don't get to establish and license a management company, you will never get a fund. Therefore, you don't care if that regulation is good or not.
So what do you think is important for the LPs?
Absolutely, super important. That's a bit the challenge, I would say. Like, you need to explain to your LPs that you go somewhere where they have maybe no experience, then, that raises hundreds of questions you need to explain. Then you also need to be aware of all the details, so you need to become a little bit an expert. I think it's a lot about education and communication, and honestly, I'm not really on top of the details here, because for us it was like clear we had to go to Luxembourg. But I think for the next fund, it's definitely worth to look at it, because also we have a presence here, so we are much more rooted, and I think that proximity thing is also very important, because we do not have, real people in Luxembourg. It's just, the shell there, which is also kind of weird a bit. And they have no ecosystem on startups there. There's a bit fintech and so on, but it's not comparable. So from that perspective, it would make much more sense for us to maybe do the next fund here. But let me maybe surprise me with, an offensive communication and, great value propositions for fun to come here, and then hopefully the network effect will kick in.
We'll get you here. Get you here. But I think there is the aspect of LP cost as well, right? Every LP, when they're investing in a fund in a new jurisdiction for them, they will have to hire lawyers who tell them that this legislation is fine, and those lawyers are expensive. And one of the possible solutions is we have this fantastic Startup Estonia framework documents that Antti Perli and Alex have kindly developed for the entire ecosystem, and they're available for free. But we have nothing like that for funds, like a legal opinion telling LPs that, this is similar to Luxembourg, this is similar to UK, this is similar to Luxembourg, you can rest assured. So maybe somehow being able to take that cost away, or the government sharing in that cost somehow, could be one of the solutions as well.
Yes, those of you who were attending the previous event here today, hosted by SVCA, then at the fund panel also the fund managers from Baltics expressed that we have to market Estonia to LPs, we have to market the Baltic region as a whole. So how could we do that? Maybe e-residency has to do a separate marketing for fund managers. What do you think?
I see two people from my team here, and they will pick it up. No, but when I actually when I was thinking about this panel and preparing, I spoke to I don't know if Margus Uudem is here, and I asked him like, what do you think? And then he said that the moment you start thinking that I want this too, you're already behind. So I think considering all those things that we could do as a government and country to make it more easier is very useful. But we should also keep like the helicopter view or the big picture on the competitive advantage that we already have, and that's the digital first, the startup ecosystem. The different programs that we have to nurture this system, Startup Visa, for example, Work in Estonia, Invest in Estonia, e-residency. So those different programs, but we could add something for the funds. So that could be another track, and then we can consider different things that could be done to benefit that.
Yes, maybe if the funds would come here, LPs would come here, more startups would come here. Then we could, maybe all take advantage of the ecosystem even more. So I think you guys have all established that there is a pretty nice value proposition. But what about in terms of if, let's say, we have this marketing for VCs, we have this regime, and you're a VC, and now you come to Estonia and you still discover that the timeline actually is currently 5 times longer than in Luxembourg. So how could we tackle this problem? Is it a huge problem for the VCs, in your opinion, the timeline, I mean?
As I said, predictability is a hugely important. It is anyway super stressful to raise a fund, especially again if it's your first fund. If it's your second fund, you're a little bit more relaxed, you have a bit of management fee coming in, you don't care so much. But your first fund, this comes out of your personal pocket. Both the cost that you're paying to establish it, but also the time that you're waiting to get started, during which time you don't get management fees. So predictability is hugely important, and I think if these things do get delayed, but again, like Luxembourg also takes very, very long. So I think it's not difficult to beat them on that. But something like, promising 3 months and then doing it in 6 months obviously should be unacceptable. Going to the sort of digital tools, etc., you may not be aware, but those have not necessarily reached every institution. Applying for a fund manager registration is still an email with a lot of attachments in PDF that copy a lot of these laws instead of some check marks in an online tool. So there is room for improvement.
Taking notes.
And I think speed is super important, because especially as a first-time fund, you have probably lined up a couple of LPs already, right? Before you actually open up your wallet and start paying the lawyers to structure the thing, and then actually you want to start, because also when you're, as I said, first-time fund, I mean, you can only charge management fee if the money is actually already committed, and you have the structure in place. So we also had that when we raised our first fund in Luxembourg. So I was always talking to my CIO, how long does it take just to get that things in place? It's crazy, because we have the commitments. So I would like to start investing now, because it's just hygiene. I think it's not our main purpose actually to set up these structures.
Exactly.
And then I had to deal with so many kind of like paperwork and so on. So I can only be done better.
And the LPs may also lose patience, right? UBS may say, I had this allocation for this year for VC, you don't have a fund this year, so I'm going to give it to someone else, and next year I may not have it again, no matter how much I like you. So even though, yes, this is not a core thing for us, we don't want to be spending time on it, but it is hugely important.
And let's say then you get the registration or license in Estonia and you discover that then there's an issue in opening a bank account. So what kind of solutions could you think of? Should the government involve banks somehow? Should we go back to the risk assessment you all mentioned before? How? Because as you Gert said that from the AML perspective, this is a long-term investment, right?
And I really loved her idea of sort of connecting the dots, right? So that if an institution like SVCA could vouch for us in a government, then why couldn't they vouch for us for a bank account?
Yeah, we have also that idea that, so for example, with e-residency, it's been vouched by police, actually. They've done an extensive background check on, you don't know this, but this was done on you as well, right? And then, so that could already, if we're able to share this information with the banks and financial institutions, that could be for them as like a sign or confirmation that this has already been done. But also, I don't think that we've specifically targeted VCs. I think Estonia has paid more attention to maybe fintechs, trying to get into this field, but I mean, there's so many things we could do. And I think with the banks, and again, I started in this position in June, so I haven't really been going through, that shocked them. So with the banks, I think, again, I would suggest, and I'm not an AML person myself, but I would also suggest maybe we can do some, again, like lose the blanket approach and try to figure out how to tailor-make different versions of different solutions for different sectors.
Because the reality is that I have a home bank whose client I have been here for 30 years, I think. So is my co-founder at the same bank. We have both opened bank accounts for businesses with that bank, which took 5 minutes. Same KYC, same people. And then when you try to open it for a VC fund, then there's, first of all, there's a month of education of what is a VC fund. And then there is about 20 times more KYC.
Yes.
Again, exact same individuals, no one else, all Estonians, and yet they KYC a VC fund like it's a zoo animal.
Yeah, it's very expensive for them. So
no, I understand. Yeah. I understand the fear and all that, but if it's possible to somehow reassure them somehow or do something similar as has been done for fintechs, that would be helpful.
Yes.
Look, I mean, the whole topic around opening bank accounts, KYC, all these checks, KYB and so on, I think there's maybe, there's opportunities for founders maybe to found a bank which is exactly solving that problem, because it's a problem, right? And we see that pattern all over different countries, that incumbent banks are still not able to deal with digitally onboarding corporate clients. It's still a one-size-fits-it-all approach. It takes forever. If it gets a little bit special, it's a bit complex. They basically first reject you because they don't want to take risks. I think this is a super opportunity space, and we try to bring this innovation also into the banks. I mean, this is one of the things Tenety does, right? Connecting startups with great solutions and make the banks better. And that would be a requirement, basically, to kind of bring that ecosystem up to a level where it's becoming attractive, because it's great to get a license for fast and structure the fund, but later on, if you need a bank account and you still have to come here and show up at the counter and show your ID and so on, this is kind of a little bit a paradox. And I think it needs to be solved as well, but it's also a great opportunity for companies or fintech companies to solve this problem. It would be great for us also to invest maybe in such a team who solves that problem here.
So startups, take a note. Okay, but I think we have concluded that there is definitely an opportunity, and I like that you all said that we shouldn't aim to being a copy of Luxembourg, but better than Luxembourg. So in this panel we have a few minutes left. I would like to ask each one of you kind of one action item, because we talked about so many things that should be done. So in your opinion, what is the first thing that Estonia or the government to start from? So Liina, maybe I'll start with you.
I'm taking away that this is an opportunity for my own program, the residency program. So it's definitely like a sector we could look take a closer look, and then. But I also think that as a government we still need to continue investing into the startup ecosystem and digitizing. I hear there's also an opportunity. I didn't know that. So that's another takeaway.
Yeah, and I think my takeaway is the idea for like closer cooperation, maybe education between the sort of industry associations like SVCA and the government regulators. I think there's things can be done there.
My takeaway is that I think we have definitely made the right decision of coming here, because when I hear like from more government and also from existing players here, there's a big appetite to create something, which is great, because that's different to many different jurisdictions I have been working in. So that atmosphere of also following a startup way of creating something which is better than what we have and challenge the status quo, that's super cool, I guess. And I would start now creating a USP around the topic, and then go out and tell to the outside world that you can offer something which nobody else can offer. And then hopefully it will kick off and create a network effect, and we're going to base our next fund here, hopefully.
I hope so too. So thank you everybody for being a part of this panel, and I hope we can together make Estonia better than Luxembourg. And I think we have a little bit of time. Does anybody from the audience maybe want to ask our panelists something? Very courageous people from Estonia, yes? No? Okay, I don't see any hands. Yes, there is one.
Maybe for...
Well, 1 second, you will get a mic. Yeah.
Okay, it works. Maybe for Andres, sort of a question, and I'm quite curious on how it looks like on venture debt as an asset class, like from Luxembourg or from Switzerland. Like we see like quite an interesting product coming from ARC in Stockholm. They're probably going to the US with their announcement today. Also silver in Southern Europe and a bit of Germany. How does it look for what's the image on venture debt in, let's say, Sweden, Switzerland, or maybe Luxembourg as well? And how is that like regulation-wise, if that works? Thanks.
I think it's a very interesting concept. It serves a specific purpose, I guess. Every way of financing, serves a specific purpose. I think venture debt is super interesting for certain cases, but it's not a one-size-fits-it-all approach. It has pros and cons. I think it would probably go too far if we now discuss about pros and cons and that, but it's an interesting concept. It's also revenue-based financing, for instance, right? Or a combination of revenue-based investing. I saw just recently a company is doing that, with callable shares. So very super exciting stuff, but also we need to be able to explain that to your LPs. And, I think the illiquid classical equity investment is still what everyone knows, and that probably takes some time to maybe make them changes. Those kind of things should also be looked at. But I think the majority of the requirements are coming from equity investments, I guess, at the moment. So I would rather focus on that and not going too broad. But it's an interesting concept. We don't do that at the moment, but we are looking into these cases as well.
I'm a limited partner in about 30 VC funds, and one of them is a venture debt fund, and very much agree on that there are challenges with that asset class, but also upsides. but mostly challenges.
Okay, I think our time is up. And big applause to our panelists.